Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Forum, where teachers from all schools of Buddhism offer their perspectives on the Dharma and its application in modern times, especially for LGBTQI audiences. These talks are offered freely to the world and made possible by appreciative listeners. If you would like to support our efforts to share the Dharma with underserved audiences, please visit gaybuddhist.org. There you can donate, find a list of upcoming speakers, or enjoy many hundreds of these recorded talks dating back to 1996.
Welcome once again. So our tradition is at this point to go around and introduce ourselves. I suggest we take a little pause before saying our name and to pay special attention to the people that are here for the first time, so that we can read them up afterwards. Then, after we've done the round of introductions, it will be my turn to introduce our speaker, and then we'll have the Dharma talk. So let me start with myself. My name is Oswaldo.
I'm George.
My name is Chet.
Francesco.
Tim.
Joe. David.
My name is Cass.
Don. Clark.
Michael.
Tyson.
My name is Henry.
Terry.
I'm Brad.
I'm Jack.
Jeff.
My name is Ray.
I'm Shantanu.
John.
Ron.
Gary.
I'm Clint.
My name is Jerry.
Tom.
Jay.
My name is Joe. I'm Hal.
Steve.
Elliot. Lucretia. Peter.
Joe.
Michael.
Okay, so it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker today. His name is Kevin Griffin. He's come to visit us before several times. Kevin is the author of One Breath at a Time, Buddhism and the 12 Steps, which published back in 2004, and A Burning Desire, Dharma, God, and the Path of Recovery. He's a longtime Buddhist practitioner and 12-step participant. He's a leader in the Mindful Recovery movement and one of the founders of the Buddhist Recovery Network. So, welcome.
Thank you, Oswaldo. And thank you all for having me here this morning. It's a group I always enjoy visiting, and I very much appreciate that you meet on Sunday morning because I live in Berkeley. That's the only time in the week when you can get across the Bay Bridge. 20 minutes. Sometimes when I'm coming across on Sunday morning, I think this is probably what it was like in the 50s. You could just drive around the Bay Area, it's like this nice freeways, Oh, well, everything changes. It's one of those Buddhist jokes. So I'm going to talk about a teaching that really inspired me when I first encountered the Dharma, the teaching called the 7 Factors of Awakening, or 7 Factors of Enlightenment. And I'll just, kind of plug, this is the first Buddhist book I ever read. It's called The Experience of Insight by Joseph Goldstein. I think it's a great book, but it might just because it was my first Dharma book, probably whatever you first read about the Dharma strikes you as being great, stays with you. Although Joseph has gone on, this was written in the late 70s, and he's gone on to really be one of the leaders in the Western Buddhist movement. In any case, a simple book that follows a retreat that he taught back then. And his explanation of the 7 factors, I remember reading it, and what I loved about it was that it was so accessible. It made sense. Most spiritual teachings that I had encountered before that were either kind of based on faith or ritual or some kind of magic or sort of mystical thing that seemed sort of out of reach. But the factors of awakening sounded like something I could do. And it was one of the things that really motivated me to engage in this practice. So just to quickly run through this list before I get into talking about them so that I don't leave you in too much suspense. The 7 factors start with mindfulness, not surprisingly. What's called investigation of Dharma, which I'll try to explain. Energy, which is certainly something that we've all encountered at some time. Joy, which was nice to know that that was one of the things that was supposed to help you become enlightened. Tranquility, concentration, and equanimity. I hope that's all 7. Mindfulness, investigation, energy, joy, tranquility, concentration, equanimity. So some of these, as I say, kind of really immediately I thought, okay, those were things I recognized. Some of them maybe not quite so clear. But before I get into unpacking them more, I want to put them a little bit in context of the overall Buddhist teachings and a specific teaching. I've just come back from a 10-day retreat at Spirit Rock, which I presume many of you know about, the meditation center in Marin County. And I was sitting with a Buddhist monk named Venerable Analayo, who wrote this book. This is like you're in a librarian's Dharma talk, and then you should read this book. And Venerable Analayo is just a really remarkable Dharma teacher. His first book was about the Satipatthana Sutta, which is we translate that as the teaching or the discourse on the 4 foundations of mindfulness. The 4 foundations of mindfulness are really the basis of a lot of Buddhist teachings and really the basis of Buddhist meditation as we know it, and particularly mindfulness, which there's actually, if you see the New York Times, there's an interesting piece in the magazine today about the commercialization of mindfulness and the sort of loss of its core meaning. And I've been saying to people there's going to be a backlash against mindfulness as a cure-all, and that's one of the reasons I think Buddhists recognized that a decade or so ago, that there was going to be a backlash. And so one of the things that's been going on in the Buddhist world is an attempt to get at the authentic Buddhist teaching on mindfulness so that it would be able to stand strong and in contrast to the somewhat commercialization and sometimes trivialization of mindfulness. That's the end of my editorial comments. Yeah.
What's the name of the book? Maybe the second one?
This one is called Perspectives on Satipatthana. The first one, they have actually both of these out there. First one is just called Satipatthana, The Direct Path to Realization. This book I wouldn't recommend for beginners. I found this difficult, and I've been practicing and studying for 35 years. The first book is good for people who are somewhat experienced in practice, maybe have been on a couple of retreats. Joseph Goldstein's book called Mindfulness was actually based on Analayo's teachings. That book is where I would start if I wanted to really get into what is this stuff about, and then maybe go to Analayo. So what Venerable Analayo was doing on this retreat, this 10-day retreat, was taking us through the 4 foundations of mindfulness and giving us both his academic and scholarly understanding of the teachings, which are profound, the way he has taken it apart, but also a very direct and clear way of practicing. And this is what makes him particularly remarkable, because there are very few people who have his academic and scholarly level of knowledge who also practice very, very deeply. And just to show how deeply he practiced each day, well, our schedule included 2 3-hour open periods for meditation when we could do sitting and walking meditation. So normally people would maybe sit for 45 minutes and then go outside and walk for a while and then come back and sit. For each of those 3-hour periods, he simply sat still and meditated. I've never seen anybody do that before. And as I say, I've been around a while. I've never seen someone sit for 3 hours without moving, like for 10 days, twice a day for 10 days straight. So he's a serious meditator. Which, and maybe that's, it's not, it can sort of sound like some kind of a, circus trick or something, or else it can sound completely crazy and intimidating. So what it shows to me is that he's really doesn't just understand the teachings, but that he's been able to put them into practice on a very deep level. In any case, let me bring you back to the 7 factors of awakening, which show up in the 4th foundation of mindfulness. So the 4 foundations are, the first foundation of mindfulness is the body, being aware of the body, and that's mostly what we do in meditation when we pay attention to the breath. So there's that. And then the second foundation is called feeling, but it's not emotional feeling. It's kind of the way things hit you. Is it pleasant? Is it unpleasant? So being aware of how you're being touched by external and internal experiences, reacting to them. The third foundation is essentially the mind and your mind states. What are my thoughts? What's the state of mind? And all of these, of course, take a lot. We can explore them to tremendous extent, and that's really what we do in meditation. The 4th foundation is somewhat different from the others in that it's not traditionally taught as being quite so experiential. First, they are clearly experiential about the body and our affective tone of our experience, our mental states. The 4th is called mindfulness of dharmas, and dharma is the teachings of the Buddha, or it's just the natural law or the truth. So it sounds a little bit more intellectual, and I often talk about it as being aware of looking at your experience through the lens of Dharma. So kind of, instead of seeing things as personal, seeing things as an unfolding of the truth of the natural law. So that typically something like impermanence. Instead of saying, I ran out of gas, I just say, that's just an expression of impermanence. And that's one way of kind of bringing a little bit more balance into our experience of things, that we don't take them personally, that we just see them as, this is just how things are. I mean, the weather right now, I think, is just such a great example, because the weather is always a great example of impermanence. But I've been thinking, it's like one day it's winter, like today, and the next day it's summer. It's just like, it's crazy right now. But rather than going, it's so cold out, we just go, it's this now, it's changed again. And there's a real freedom that comes with that kind of, you're just letting go. It's just what's happening. It's just that things are naturally changing. This is, of course, really important when relating to the significant moments of life, the losses, some of the really difficult changes in our bodies. Analayo, though, actually teaches the 4th foundation differently, because he wants everything to be experiential in our practice. So there's 2 things that he brings forward in the 4th foundation of mindfulness. The 5 hindrances, which are the 5 difficulties we face in meditation as well as in life, which are desire and aversion, which are essentially just our wish for things to be different from the way they are. The desire, aversion, sleepiness, lack of energy, mental and physical, restlessness, both physical and mental, and doubt. So those are the 5 hindrances, and probably every Buddhist book talks about the 5 hindrances. But in contrast to them, the 7 factors of awakening are sort of the positive energies. And what Analayo suggested is that you don't just sort of think about them and maybe see, how am I doing, judging yourself, or just somehow, get a sort of scorecard, but rather that as you're meditating, you check in, starting with mindfulness, because really the others don't function much without mindfulness. Am I being mindful? Am I investigating? Am I really exploring my experience, or am I just kind of hanging out? Is there energy here? Is there a feeling of uplift, of joy? Is there tranquility? Is there concentration? Finally, is there equanimity, or what Analayo calls equipoise? And in the Satipatthana, so I'll read you a little bit of what the Buddha says about this. And in these suttas, which were originally orally transmitted, they were kept alive through an oral tradition for hundreds of years. There's a lot of repetition, and that's a way of creating forms that are easily remembered. So we'll start with mindfulness. And he's talking to some monks, and he says, "Here, monks, if the mindfulness awakening factor is present within a monk, if the mindfulness awakening factor is present within, a monk knows, quote, the mindfulness awakening factor is present within me. Or, if the mindfulness awakening factor is not present within, he knows the awakening factor is not present within me." And that's kind of what I was saying about Analayo, saying, check in, this is happening. And then he says, and he knows how the unarisen mindfulness awakening factor arises. That is to say, he knows how to become mindful. It's like you're sitting there and you go, I'm not being very mindful. Oh, I know how I can do that. I'll pay attention to my breath, or I'll feel my body, or I'll whatever your practice is. And he knows how the arisen mindfulness awakening factor is perfected by development. Sounds good. So that would mean that you've really explored this and probably studied and practiced, and you have an understanding of how to go very deep with this. First of all, this really suggests a level of engagement that I think most of the time when mindfulness is presented maybe isn't there in the way we think of mindfulness. This is really like saying, okay, be aware. Are you mindful? And how can you bring it about? And how can you maintain it or deepen it? Whether it's not presented that way or not, I don't know. But it gives us a pretty clear approach to, this is how I'm supposed to do this. It's very direct. So the Buddha then goes through all 7 of the factors and says essentially the same thing. If the investigation awakening factor is present within, he knows it is present within. He knows how the unarisen investigation of Dharma's awakening factor arises. He knows how the arisen factor is perfected. So this gives us a very, as I say, very structured and very clear way of working with these elements. And that, again, this is one of the things that I love about the Dharma, about Buddhism, that it's not mysterious. This is not a secret teaching. It's not a faith teaching. It's not a mystical teaching. Sometimes people think of Buddhism as a mystical tradition. It's really not. So I want to talk a little bit more about these individual factors and what they, how they interact, and their function in our practice. So the way we look at them is that mindfulness is kind of the crown jewel, and it's to put it in less poetic terms, it's really the guiding factor. It's the overseer of all the factors. So if one of the other factors is there without awakening, without mindfulness, it's not really manifesting as an awakening factor. Like you can be joyful or energetic, but if you're not mindful of it, it's not inclining towards awakening or even that term awakening, enlightenment. These are the things that get maybe a little too far out there, but it's just not inclining towards spiritual development. Let's put it that way. So mindfulness kind of has to be there for each of these. The other 6 then are seen as there are 2 forms of energy. So the first 3, investigation, energy, and joy, are seen as rising energy, stimulating. The last 3, tranquility, concentration, and equanimity, are seen as calming. So, this goes right with the idea and the teaching that the Buddha gave, that he's teaching a middle path. It's not that we're trying to get all just hyped up, and it's not that we're just trying to get all calmed down. It's that we're trying to find a balance between these 2. And certainly when you're practicing meditation, if you've done it to any degree, that trying to find a balance between being alert and awake and calm and relaxed is difficult. It's one of the great challenges. A lot of times I think of meditation as really just being about energy. That when my energy comes into balance, as long as I'm mindful, that everything just kind of gets very clear. I mean, think about, if you've ever tried meditating before you go to bed. And oftentimes I find that when I'm teaching meditation to newcomers or new practitioners, that's a time when they'll try to fit it in their life, and it seems like an easy time to meditate, because you're kind of, you're tired, and so you kind of sit down to meditate, and you think, oh yeah, I'm kind of relaxed, and this is a nice time to meditate. And what happens? You get duller and duller, and the mind starts to get cloudy. And you might be in the middle of that. Sometimes you get in that space, you think, oh, this is really great, and things start to, colors are coming, or dreamy images. And I've had people say, oh, I think this is this like a really spiritual state? Am I having kind of a big, is this sort of like enlightenment? I'm like, no, it's kind of like dreaming. And like passing out. So, no, that's just not, that's not really, that doesn't really work. But then there's, the other, if you try to meditate when you're really wound up, you're all excited, like maybe you're just about to go to a party or something that you're really excited about, and I'll meditate for a few minutes beforehand, and you just had a cup of coffee or whatever stimulant you use, and and you can't sit still, and okay, that's not going to work either, right? So you kind of see, okay, I need to find this middle way. Well, it turns out that concentration, because concentration is so calming that it needs a lot of energy to hold it. So that's one of the kind of paradoxes of practice. So one way of looking at the factors of awakening is as a progression of just a progression. I don't know. I don't think I have to come up with a word for what that is. But so let's look at it as a progression. We start with mindfulness. We establish, okay, I'm sitting here. I feel my body. I feel my breath. Kind of, all right, got that. Now, if I want to go far with this, I need to pay very close attention. It's not enough to just kind of sit here. It's like, yeah, I'm breathing. Because pretty quickly, the mind starts to wander. So by investigating, I'm kind of trying to really aim. Okay, let me what does my breath really feel like? It's easy to say, in, out, I'm breathing. But, there's a lot of subtlety. And when we start to pay close attention to the breath, we find that it's not two experiences in, out. It's actually a constant of experience. Because every split second of experience is slightly different. This is one of the truths that comes out of the understanding of impermanence. Everything is constantly changing, not just in big, every 6 months or every week or every day. Every split second, everything, and even I don't even think of impermanence or experience impermanence so much as it's changing, as it's in constant motion. There's constant motion and movement. So that's what we know about the atomic level, right? That everything there's like a vibration going on. So when you start to pay attention to your breath like that, then you're starting to get a lot stronger mindfulness, really a much deeper level of mindfulness. One of the things that does then, that level of attention, that level of interest, stimulates energy. So one of the antidotes actually to sleepiness is to pay closer attention, to really see what's it's like when you're in a class and the teacher, not a lot of class like this, but like a college class, because this isn't boring like that. He said, hopefully. And so he was talking about, something that you're not that interested in. Can you get interested? Wait a minute. Wow, he just mentioned, sex or whatever. What did he say about that? I thought this was molecular biology. Okay. So all of a sudden your mind gets sharp. It wakes up, right? Fritz Perls, the founder of Gestalt therapy, said something like, boredom is the lack of attention. So that energy, when we're not paying attention, everything's kind of the same. But when you start to look and precisely, then energy arises. So now we're at this third factor of awakening. As energy comes up in the body, then through this process, and this is one of the places where it's a little more mysterious, something else arises which we call joy, sometimes called rapture, this fourth factor of awakening. This is something, in my experience, this arises spontaneously, where investigation I can kind of incline and make effort for. I'm not sure you can make effort for joy. That you can, there is one thing that will help it, and that is if you smile when you're meditating. And I remember getting that teaching, and it was only because it was given in a kind of context of meditation. If somebody tells me to smile, my tendency is to not smile. And I've been a not smiler for much of my life. I can remember like teenage girls walking by me when I was like 7 and saying, "Oh, why don't you smile?" And I think that's just I don't know if it's like a deeply embedded, genetic problem, or if it's just the way my face is. But anyway, I learned to just smile as a practice. Not smile like, I'm meditating, but just turn up the corners of my mouth. And this is one of those things you probably heard, studies that show that if you're smiling, there's so many studies out there that, if you need one, you can always find one that'll back what you're saying, which is very convenient. We appreciate the federal government's financing all those things that make us feel like we're right. But anyway, so apparently smiling I don't know if it brings endorphins or something else, but in meditation it does. It's uplifting. Now, I would warn against smiling when you're really not in a good mood, because I think for most of us that just creates a tension. But if you're meditating and you're just kind of like flat, line level, just kind of not really, nothing much is happening, just to do that. It might not even look like I'm smiling. I don't know what it looks like, but I've never, done a selfie of myself. It can start to bring this other form of energy, and this can manifest. This joy, it can manifest as physical. It's kind of a combination of physical and emotional. In any case, this is then a place, again, where it's not so intuitively clear that joy then leads to tranquility. So I would think of this as what's kind of happening. One way of thinking about this is as energy and joy develop, you're kind of clearing out the cobwebs, both physical and emotional, so that you're kind of clearing away the hindrances and sort of the negativity in the mind. And that then allows the mind to relax. You're not really disturbed by much right now. You're just kind of like, oh, that's good. And perhaps if you've gotten a teaching on this, you understand that this joy is not the ultimate goal, where it's not kind of, this isn't the place to stop. And this is one of the things that I think distinguishes Buddhism, is that it really defines the ultimate happiness as being peace, or a deep state of peace and tranquility, or equanimity, as we call it. Whereas I think in our popular culture, at least, happiness and joy and rapture, sort of bliss, these are kind of seen as the goal. You want to be like, yeah, all the time, right? That would be great. And Buddhism sees that as that kind of level of happiness as being somewhat coarse, and that it's. I think there's also an inclination for it. It's so full of energy, perhaps, that it's not sustainable. It kind of is going to tend to lapse into something else too quickly. In any case, the suggestion is that when there is this rising of energy and joy, that we allow it to kind of fall into, naturally just into tranquility, just ease, just kind of, and this is where we're shifting then from this stimulating into the calming. And as I say, this is the other thing that I think happens here is that in order to sustain a deep calming, there needs to be this underpinning of energy. And I've worked with this a lot. I've experienced this a lot in meditation. And I still don't know how it works exactly, but I know that it works, because when I try to go to the states of calm without the energy underneath it, that's when I fall off into the sleepiness. So somehow we get to this level of tranquility that can feel very peaceful, and yet beneath it, and it's almost subterranean, is this energy that's holding it. And you don't really experience it. You're not really aware of the energy, but you know that the fact that you're not falling asleep in this state of deep calm means that there's some energy there. Maybe it's just that you're not looking at it. You're not focusing on that. You're just kind of going, okay, what I'm focusing on, because as we work with these factors, we're looking at what's happening, what's the prevalent factor right now. So the prevalent factor becomes then this tranquility. You're sitting with that, and this is when, of course, meditation becomes very, very wonderful. And I'd say it's what all of us are really seeking to some extent when we come to a meditation group or when we try to start to study meditation. This tranquility. Finally, some peace. And that then allows the mind then to move to the sixth factor, which is concentration. Now this is really talking about a very stable mind. The mind has gotten it's not just calm, where you're relaxed. I mean, you can be relaxed sitting watching TV or sitting and watching a sunset, but this is the mind now is very focused and very clear and undisturbed, and you're resting in your experience there. And what then comes out of that, and in a sense it's really just a realization, is this state of equanimity. So equanimity is the quality that the Buddha really praised above all qualities. And he praised a few. He praised mindfulness, he praised loving kindness, and he praised equanimity. So in this teaching on the four foundations of mindfulness, he starts by saying mindfulness is the direct path to realization. And here's the way to practice mindfulness. And he takes us through all of this. And finally, what it arrives at is this equanimity. So, as Venerable Analayo has chosen to use the word equipoise, and I think that's an interesting choice, because I didn't talk to him about it, and he didn't go into it a lot. But when I think about equanimity, it sounds to me like you're just really peaceful, and the mind it's more of an, I guess, internal experience, where equipoise is sort of acknowledging that there may be disturbances around you, because I think of poise as sort of poise amidst the things that are, you're walking into some situation and there's a lot going on, but you're remaining poised. So equipoised is that whatever is going on, you're not disturbed by it. You're able to maintain your balance, your mental balance. Another way that equanimity is talked about is that whether you have a pleasant experience or an unpleasant experience, you don't fall into desire or aversion. So pleasant stimulates craving. This is one of the formulas the Buddha says. When you experience a pleasant sense experience, then that tends to lead to a wish for more of that, or a greater, pleasant experience. The experience of something unpleasant leads to the wish to get rid of that, to change it. So equanimity is the capacity to have those pleasant, unpleasant experiences without getting triggered into craving and aversion. So this is, again, balance of mind, undisturbed. I was happy to realize that I've written about this. I was like, didn't I say something about this? So what I'm going to do, this is a workbook I put out last year, and it's ostensibly about Buddhism and the 12 steps, but there's a lot of stuff in here that's really just about Buddhism. But this is meant to give you kind of specific ways to work with different teachings. So I thought that what we could do is just do this as a contemplation. So I'm going to ask you to just sit with your eyes closed and listen to this. So we call this a 7 factors of enlightenment inventory. By taking a 7 factors inventory, we can see the aspects of the path that we need to work on, as well as those that are already well developed. In this way, we can gain some direction for our practice, as well as taking some comfort in our progress so far. So ask yourself which of these qualities are developing well and which might need some extra attention and effort. The first factor, mindfulness. How strong is your mindfulness practice? Do you have a clear understanding of what mindfulness is? Do you practice formally on a regular basis? How much and in what areas do you apply mindfulness to your daily life? How could you deepen your mindfulness, both in meditation and in daily life? The second factor, investigation. Investigation is careful attention to the details of our experience, especially while meditating, and viewing that experience through the lens of Dharma. This means seeing impermanence, suffering, and the lack of a core identity in each experience. It's not analysis, but rather a close looking. For instance, when investigating the breath, we can see that it's in constant flux, that no single breath is satisfying, that is, we always need to breathe again, and that the breath is not mine, is not me, and I am not the breath. This kind of investigation requires a close attention and effort in our practice. Are you meditating with this sense of exploration, or simply sitting there? The third factor, energy. Many people struggle with energy in their practice, too much or not enough. What is the quality of energy in your practice and in your life? Is it strong and balanced, or do you find yourself lacking energy or too wound up? Balancing energy requires effort both during meditation and outside of meditation. During meditation, we need to work with posture and relaxation. In addition, it's important to try to extend your periods of meditation, because the longer we sit, the more our energy gets naturally balanced. If we stop sitting because we're tired or restless, we never allow this natural balancing to unfold. Outside of meditation, we need to be aware of stress, stimulation, and rest. Our culture tends to cause excess stress and stimulation and give us little time for sleep and relaxation. How balanced is your energy? The fourth factor, joy. It's important to see that joy is one of the factors, the Buddha says, is vital to spiritual development. Are you enjoying your life? If not, it's vital to explore what is standing in the way. Of course, we all have difficulties. Many people struggle with depression or anxiety, but this doesn't mean we can't find ways to enjoy ourselves. Many books and workshops are around to help us cultivate joy. The other question is, are you enjoying your meditation? Sometimes our spiritual practice can start to seem like one long slog, bleak and serious. Meditation can, and I dare say should, be enjoyable, at least some of the time. If you're not enjoying it, why not? And the fifth factor, tranquility. Obviously, one of the things we are trying to get from meditation is a sense of tranquility. Do you see this arising in your practice? Again, we can't make tranquility happen, but if we are patient, it tends to come. If this is a particular issue, you might work with concentration or relaxation exercises in your practice. And the sixth factor, concentration. Concentration is the quality of meditation that requires the most time and commitment. Silent meditation retreats are designed to allow this quality to grow. In daily practice, it can be difficult to develop much quiet. Consider taking a silent retreat to begin to experience deeper states of calm and concentration. When meditating, devote a certain amount of time in each session to simply calming the mind. What are you doing in your practice and in your life to cultivate concentration? Finally, the seventh factor, equanimity. Equanimity is the quality of balance that allows us to not get too high or too low. It means we can accept whatever is arising in the body and mind. It is a state of deep peace. The Buddha treasured equanimity as the highest form of happiness and included it in several lists. Equanimity is a quality of non-reactivity, which is vital for a person in recovery. It implies patience, forbearance, and endurance. It includes acceptance and serenity. It means we are not disturbed by the vicissitudes of life. Begin to be more aware of the things that disturb your equanimity, and also notice the times when you are at peace. Try to cultivate and incorporate the things that bring more equanimity into your life. Okay, so just one or two more little pieces. This is from Joseph Goldstein. It says that the evolution of mind along this path can fill one with tremendous inspiration and encouragement. Imagine a mind that has been brought to full development of mindfulness and wisdom, energy, rapture, calm, concentration, and equanimity. It is a mind which is shining and full of joy. That is what we are doing. Not only do the factors of enlightenment bring happiness in the moment, but all of them slope towards nirvana, towards enlightenment, towards freedom. Sometimes from day to day it is easy to forget what we are doing in dealing with the restlessness and pains and aches and wandering mind. But what is happening imperceptibly, from moment to moment, but very progressively, surely, and steadily, is the development and growth of these limbs of enlightenment. It's a very great thing that is being done. It is the noblest evolution of mind. I guess we have a few minutes.
Yes, we do.
Okay. Yeah, if there are any thoughts or questions, I'd be happy to attempt to address them. Yeah.
Well, much of the way the Satipatthana students taught and written about by Joseph and others is the internal part of mindfulness.
Mm-hmm.
And the sutta itself, every one of the factors, every the objects, the body, dharmas, and so on, refers to know this internally and externally.
Right.
And I'm just interested in, you alluded to that a little bit in the talk about noticing what are the factors that are, what are the circumstances when you feel more calm or less calm, and what relates to that. But I wonder if you have any thoughts on how you experience those kinds of teachings about external mindfulness on the silent retreats, and how you understand that in the way that you teach, the way you write in terms of recovery, and so on.
Yeah. That's one of the aspects. So, yeah, in the sutta it says experience things internally and externally, and it's one of the things that I find confusing to some extent. I mean, some things it's clear what it would mean, but that's something that, there's some debate about what it means to be aware of the breath internally and externally. There seems to be kind of the one view is, you're paying attention to your breath, and then you're noticing when other people are breathing. Well, that's sort of a strange thing to do. I mean, sometimes in a meditation hall you'll hear other people breathing, but then you could take it as I feel the breath inside my body and I feel it outside my body. I don't know. I don't find that a useful teaching. What I find useful is just engaging through the senses as I'm, if I'm outside, seeing things, noticing how, what my environment is like, noticing the energies around me, the people around me, all of that. And it's not really pointed to quite in that way in the Satipatthana. So for me, it's more about, just the external environment and being aware of that. I don't have a great grip on that question. So
I spent a lot of time thinking and writing about that, and I think one of the things that Joseph teaches about sometimes is that noticing, in terms of sort of the fourth foundation, noticing, say that someone's angry. He has this example of someone's at the airport, that he realizes, they're upset because, so someone's flight is canceled.
Yeah.
And now some people seem not to respond, and others, I guess you could say, take it personally or sort of express anger about it. And so the external part would be noticing, that's aversion.
Right.
That's aversion.
They are experiencing aversion.
Yeah, aversion, and then being aware internally of what is that causing. So it could be, I'm having aversion about their aversion. I'm judging them.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Or it could be like, this is like kind of quite hard to pull off, right? But this would be something like, I'm experiencing compassion because I recognize that this isn't them personally. Like, this is what happens given their conditioning, various causes. That yes, they're experiencing. There's this aversion out there now that they're experiencing. They're suffering. That's, and then so that would be the sort of internal, external.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. I guess, and what comes up for me is that the thing that I notice a lot externally is impermanence, and as you're saying, and dukkha, suffering. Those are the things that are really jump out from the world. And when you see someone in some agitation, it is a great practice to be able to bring compassion like that. One of the things that I do when I'm on retreat, and I'm trying to, when it's a long meditation period, and I've kind of run out of steam, is that I think about everybody who lives on my block in Berkeley. And I go, and when I first did this, I would go down the block and think of each person, and I would wish them loving kindness. And on this last retreat, I started doing it that way, and then about halfway through, I realized that what I was noticing was impermanence and suffering. You know, someone died down the street a few weeks ago. There was a little boy who was hit by a car, whose leg was broken. One son just left for college. It was a kind of, some people down the street the other way just got divorced. And that was like a way of reminding myself of just how pervasive these things. This is on one block in Berkeley, and it kind of blew me away. Because there's a story in the Buddhist teachings about the woman whose child died, and the Buddha says, I'll bring him back to life if you can find a household where no one ever died. So go around town and come back with a mustard seed from that house. And then she, of course, goes around. And this is exactly the experience I was having. It was like the mustard seed experience on my block. There's not a house on the street where I couldn't see at least some big changes. And many of them, there was some significant loss. I don't know if that is similar to what you're talking about, but yeah. And I think what the value of that is that when we're not, for one thing, it's taking us out of, practice is all about me and my feelings, what I'm thinking. And so it's opening me up to, this is just part of this integrated experience. And it also means that the world then becomes my mindfulness bell. Everything around me I can use as an opportunity for waking up if I'm looking for it that way. But thank you very much for the question and for your own teachings on it. It's great. Well, it looks like we're just about out of time.
We have time for one
short question.
One more.
Yeah.
I just want to say I appreciate your weaving in the way that 7 factors work. I understand the way joy energizes and carries the concentration, the deeper states more now. Really, it makes a lot more sense. Thank you.
Good. Yeah. It's one of those surprising teachings to me. And actually one that I'm grateful for, that the Buddha really includes joy, because sometimes there can seem like this joyless quality to the Dharma and Buddhism. It's like it's so serious, and people are walking around looking, so grim or something. But also that there is this spiritual quality to joy.
And it's grounded.
And that's right. That it's not just flying off.
Yeah.
It's actually leading somewhere. It's a gateway into something else. And I guess I can think of that kind of sunset watching moment in that way, how we can feel this awe and joy rising, and it can be, and it's peaceful and beautiful too. We can kind of make that connection in that natural environment. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Kevin, for a great Dharma talk.
Thank you.
And if we can get together for the next half hour, so will you be hanging around for?
I'm going to hang around for a little while. My wife and daughter are probably landed at SFO a little while ago, and I told them I'd pick them up at 24th Street BART. So
okay,
we're going to be checking my text right
somebody
away.
else has a question they can check. Okay, so excuse me. So at this point, one of my duties is to remind people of the Pali word for generosity, dana, and this is what sustains us in the Sangha, the place, the beautiful place where meditate, and some of the work that gets done by the Larkin Street youth meals that we offer once a month, and the correspondence with people behind bars. not the kind that you go to Hubbard drinking. But anyway, our suggested donation is $10, or if you can afford it, or more if you can afford it. And part of what I do now is to talk about the next speaker, which I believe will be an open discussion next week, right? I just wanted to confirm. So we'll collectively be all the Dharma speakers next week. And we have a host today.
Yes, I'm your host today. So please linger and enjoy the fellowship of the Sangha. There are some snacks and hot water for tea. And if you do make tea, please wash your cup afterwards with hot soapy water. I will be coming around with the Dharma bowl, so look for me. At 12:30, some people get together and go to lunch. They gather at the front door. Anybody is welcome to join in. And one other thing is that we are looking for one more substitute host. So if hosting might be a way you would like to support the Sangha, contribute to the Sangha, pay back, please talk to me during the social hour.
Okay, so this is the point where we do the dedication of merit, and then we'll have the half-hour social.
By the power and truth of this practice, may all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all be free from sorrow and the causes of sorrow. May all never be separated from the sacred happiness which is without sorrow, and may all live in equanimity without too much attachment or too much aversion, believing in the equality of all that lives.
Thank you, Griffin.
Thank you for listening to the Gay Buddhist Forum. If you would like to hear several new talks per month and be notified of upcoming speakers so you can participate live, please subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and join our mailing list by visiting gaybuddhist.org.